Do I have to let out the breath? Hello, everyone. Hopefully you guys can hear us. Josh, say something.
Hi, Brian.
Hey, Josh. Welcome, guys, to it's the first webinar we've done in a while, and this one will be a little different, where we're going to go through some code as opposed to kind of more of a high-level chat. So really couldn't be doing this without, even though I've written tests before, not as much as nearly not as much as I would like in WordPress. I'm super happy to have Josh on the line from Saturday Drive, formerly Other Things, who has been gracious enough to help us through some of the testing, some examples, and we'll try and spin up a new plugin with some tests, and then also try and see if we can add it to my legacy plugin, which doesn't have any tests on it at all right now. So welcome, Josh.
Oh, thanks for having me, Brian. Andy in the chat's talking about problems with the audio. Everybody else is hearing fine. Let us know, like we can see. And if you have questions, just pop it up. So we are going to go through a couple different things in the topic of unit testing. We wanted to start super basic. And talk about unit testing and unit testing versus integration and acceptance testing. So all the different types of automated testing. I think it's important to start with definitions. We're on the same page real quick.
Yep.
When we talk about automated testing, we could mean running code-based tests with like PHPunit and on the PHP side, or we just in the JavaScript side. We could mean integration testing, where we combine all these things together, the database and the WordPress and our code. We generally run those with PHPunit or Jest. And we could also mean, more like behavior-driven things, where we simulate simulate the browser. So Dusk, Cypress, the WordPress end-to-end test suite that was recently released is another example, where you use headless Chrome and then you write, when I log in with a bad password, do I see an error message? That sort of thing. When this field is hidden, do we see that? So there's lots of different levels of testing, and there's also static analysis, running for cut and paste errors, those sorts of things. So in WordPress, we tend to start with PHPunit a lot. So I think that's a good place to start. I like to start with unit tests, not integration tests, and I'm making that difference in saying a unit test doesn't require a dependency. For example, WordPress or the database.
Yeah, right.
And I think it's important to start there, because if you can test with those, it's cheaper. And when I say cheaper, I mean your CI takes less time, your brain power is less, your complexity of setting it up is less. Because there's just less moving parts, but it doesn't, at some point you want to use like a database. You want to use a browser to make sure. So it's levels, but I think it's a good place to start.
Cool.
So Brian, have you done, when you set up a plugin, do you do separate unit tests versus integration tests, or do you do it all in one?
So I haven't, so that's the thing. I've, for testing, a lot of it has been, with Vue and using Jest, and Laravel, which you're wearing a nice Laravel shirt, the new one. It's, very nice. So a lot of the testing I've been doing lately, I'd say the last year or so, has been in that. The testing that I've been doing in WordPress with the WordPress plugins I have has been, firing out the browser and seeing what's happening, or worst case, the user being like, this doesn't work, which is terrible. It has been kind of a hindrance there. So a lot of but the one plugin does have the tests there, and I would call them not unit tests. I call them more so integration tests. Some of them are just looking at the one class, like an event, right? Like the newsletter has an event. So I just have the class, I add properties to it, and I make sure, say, a calculation works correctly. So that doesn't need any database, doesn't need WordPress, doesn't need anything. But a lot of those other tests are depending on WordPress, are also depending on another calendar plugin to be there as well to pull the data from, right? So they are way more, as you say, expensive in terms of brain power and time to run. So Hopefully that
Yeah,
answers your
and so I
question.
think, I like to, I want to jump back into basic assertions for a minute here. Like I have on my screen just what WordPress generates in a plugin, and it's in pretty simple PHP unit, their API. Like we have this assert true that tests whether something is true. Testing is sort of just getting to know the environment, knowing what to test, knowing like how to simplify things down, and a little bit less like the complexity of it. Like the assertions, I think, are a good thing to start with. So I was going to kind of jump back to just a straight up PHP package and just write like one or two classes and like one class, one function, and write a test just so we can see what that is, and then kind of build up the levels in a WordPress plugin.
Sounds good. If you're able to bump up the font size a bit, that'd be sweet.
Anybody remember how to do that in VS Code?
I'm assuming there are some preferences, or that was a good question though. Oh, Control Plus. John is saying.
Yeah, you would think so. Ooh, look at that.
So Control Shift. Hey, boom. Thanks, John.
Okay, now I know. Now I can't see anything.
Whoa! Just
I
can see one letter. Nice.
So if we like maybe make another directory here, make dir test. Oh, that already exists. I'll just start the composer and have it install PHPunit.
Nice. So this is literally like PHP, like pure PHP. Yeah, this isn't in WordPress at the moment, just to show what some potential unit tests could be. Thanks those who answered the poll, but yeah, basically we're about 50-50 split between those who have written or not written unit tests and those who have written tests with WordPress before. So yeah, we'll be covering both. Brianium.
So we're just going to go ahead and generate that. And then it's going to generate that. So let's just look at what we have here. That's how you install it. I kind of just wonder for time if it would be quicker just to cheat and do this inside of Caldera forms because we know they run.
Sure.
Like that's how you install it. If you want to just make a package, it's just going to be a little bit more time. So like, let's just go in and sort of drop some tests in here. Like if I go composer test unit, it'll run my unit test. Sorry, my computer was working a minute ago.
Composer. Oh, so it's really running in Docker. Nice.
Yeah. The actual command's just PHPunit and then the path to the... I just wanted to make sure they're still running.
Yep. Nice.
Great. So they're going to run there. And let's take a look at what they look like and how to add some more. If we want to, we can switch into the JavaScript stuff. Just yell at me. So I did just give a talk at JavaScript for WP on all that.
Nice.
The example code is in my GitHub. So let's drop in here. Let's look at some of these tests that are running right now. Let's find something simple. Probably not. Here's a great example of a simple test here, right?
Yep.
If we look here, and this is inside of the WordPress test suite, this is assert same. We're asserting that two values are the same. That's different than equals in terms of object equality, right? So two objects with the same values are raised, like they have to be the same. But here's an example of where I'm just making sure that it's going to use the same WordPress internal API that I would expect it to use, right? This is something that builds a nonce for the WordPress REST API. I'm just testing that the two strings are the same. This is an example of an integration test that we have here. In this case, I'm using assert equals because it is I'm not worried actually about strict equality. So if we want to go in, I'm just trying to find a place for better to drop in some new tests. I believe that we can do. Great. Yep. In PHPunit, you can add an annotation to group your tests. And I put things in a group called now, and then I have a shortcut to just run those tests. So this will make the run quicker, so we can start to show some tests. This is all in Caldera Forms, which is on GitHub, Caldera WP/Caldera Forms. If you want to take a look there, like this is my super complex composer scripting to automate all this stuff, which I really recommend. Like all of this stuff that we're just like, let's skip over the setup because it'll take longer than we have. Just kind of paste it out of like Yoast or out of our plugin or out of Gutenberg. Like find a good setup and just steal it.
Yeah, right. The joy of open source.
Yeah. No, I mean, this is like hacked together from things I stole from Yoast or Gutenberg. And GPL borrowed. Okay, so now we have it where it'll run a quick run here. And so let's start adding some new tests, right? If I just to start with something very simple, if I wanted to, and I'm just going to, in the main plugin file, just add a new function here called Hi Brian, right?
Nice.
We didn't spell it right.
Yeah. my Insta is brain hog because everyone steals or spells it wrong. So
I like that you're looks good to me. Okay, so notice that I'm not going to actually put anything in here. Okay. I'm just leaving it empty. And then I'm going to go back into my testing directory here. And I'm going to add another test, which I'm just trying to see what they're supposed to extend the Caldera Forms test case. Great. So when Brian and I were talking about this earlier today, I was like, oh man, I've been writing all these tests. I'm ready for it. And then I realized they were all in Laravel, which is hilarious because I saw Brian at Laracon recently, and he said to me, hey, you want to do this webinar?
Like you forget, it's PHP, but yeah, it's a very different beast.
Yeah. Okay, so let's start over here. Let's see, as I said, there is a now assertion, or you can put these
group.
Your PHP doc block, you can say it's a group of now. And the idea there is you can say like database tests, API tests, which I do, but also I use it for this shortcut. And just to make sure that these tests are actually going to run, I like to just test. Sometimes you add tests and then everything's working, then you realize those tests didn't run for whatever. So I like to sometimes start when I'm worried about that, so I don't embarrass myself on the middle of a webinar. Right? Like, oh, you would expect this to happen. Oh, man, what's going on, right? By just running, real quick and making sure this is going to fail on assert true equals false. And so it runs a lot faster when you're not live streaming.
Yeah, right at the same time. So this is actually going through and like firing up a new container, or it's running within the same thing? Okay, good. It failed. Sweet.
It runs inside of a separate container. If you look in like Docker Compose, there is a set of containers out there. Chris, I can't remember his full name.
Yeah.
He develops a whole set of these containers for like emulating the WordPress VIP test setup, including the testing and stuff like that.
Nice.
So I just use that. And there's a bunch of Torque articles about setting this up that I've authored.
Okay.
If you go on torquemag.io and search for me, like that's what this is based on, really.
Okay.
So now we did see that fail. That's great, except it didn't fail for the right reason. What we wanted it to do was we wanted to go in here and we wanted to call this function, which was hi, Brian. We'll assign this to a variable. And then what we're going to do is we're going to assert same again. And I'm going to assert that it returns hi, Brian. Now, it doesn't because we haven't implemented the testing, where we haven't actually implemented the feature.
Yep.
But one of the key advantages of testing is that we can adopt what's called test-driven development, where we create a test that describes the expected result. We commit that. So it fails. We did this on a different branch. We could, and so that we can call this like the red stage and a red green, where it's red, don't go, because and Travis and Circle CI and other sort of tools will show you a red X because it's failed. And then you go through and you make changes until the test pass. And then it's green, and then you're free to merge it. Well, you should request a code review from the other developer at that point. So this is what we call test-driven development. So this should have been result. We're asserting that the result, this is our expected value, is going to be what we expected it to be. So now I would commit this and say failing tests for new function. Push that up. And depending on the process, we might review that and say like, hey, do these tests actually describe the functionality? Or we could be in the middle of a webinar or working on something greenfield where we just want to write it right now.
That's interesting. I never would have thought of pushing it up, the failing test. But I guess why not, right? If you're going to squash the commits or you had, like you said, review, is this test actually testing what we want it to test? Then yeah, that's a nice thing to do it if you're not like pairing with someone at the same computer or something. Right.
The other advantage to it is you can write the tests and commit them and then try to implement it, fail at implementing it, revert back to, right? I'm one of those people who generally does things twice and just throws out the first attempt.
Yep.
And so it's really helpful to me to, I should start this test because it should pass.
Yep.
And but it's very helpful to be able to have a baseline, do some work, knowing that you can get back to those failing tests just by hitting get revert.
Yep.
Without having to start over on the test, which worked. Sure, sometimes you did the test wrong.
Sure.
But you want to make sure that you don't lose that if you use them to discover the wrong solution.
Nice.
And I don't mean the wrong solution to be pejorative. Like finding the wrong solution to a problem is a great step. It's solving. Okay, great. So now look at this. Great. It passed.
Perfect.
And we have all of our tests passing. And we could then push this back up to our, back up to our Git repo, which should trigger some sort of, CI system like Travis to run these tests again, possibly more tests, possibly in different environments. And then we would be prepared to merge it or request a review.
Nice.
So that's like a super basic assertion. And from there, it's similar concepts in terms of assertions. For example, if we changed right now to returning an array here, right? And I wanted to test that. Let's go back here. I could do some things like this. This is a really old version of PHP, and I'm not sure that has assert is array.
Yeah, I guess you could do assert true is array.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard to know if it's the code complete or it's the version. We're about to find out.
Uh-huh.
And then we would, once we do that, we would say assert array has keys, has key. And then the key would be name.
Oh, thanks. So Luca, it's assert internal type array. It's one potential thing. There's a lot of assertions that, especially for either PHPunit or if you're doing tests in Jest, yeah, you can look up. And yeah, like Josh said, they can change depending on what version of PHPunit you're running. So it's always good to check that if for some reason it's saying, oh, this assert function doesn't exist, and you're wondering why. Just check which version of PHPunit you have installed.
Yeah, I'm working on a couple different projects that are all in different versions of PHPunit.
Oh, that's fun.
It's really confusing.
Why would that be?
The really fun one is when you're reading like JavaScript testing docs and the assertion library is different.
Mm-hmm.
Right, because everything in JavaScript is modules, right? Including the testing libraries. Like nothing's a complete piece of software. It's just assembled. So you can like swap out Mocha for Chai, or I can't keep track of all these terms.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's sometimes you're reading the docs and it's in a different assertion library. Oh, it worked.
Hey,
Right,
you sound surprised.
You win a prize. You win the prize. Brian, tell him what you want.
You get all the points.
Okay.
That's awesome.
Imaginary at that point.
So you could literally do then another one of like, I don't know if there's another easier function, but yeah, asserting equals or same that, hi, Brian is result and then with the key of name. Yeah.
Yeah. So something like that, you can then, assert equals, right? And that's what we had before. Like, hi, Brian here. But what's neat about this is that it gives us the confidence of if we make
result name, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So this gives us this confidence of if I had made that change that I made to the plugin, to that function because I needed it to work differently in some other function that called it, I would have had all those tests fail, and then I would have had to answer for why they were failing. Like, well, because that's what it does now, or like, oh no, that's terrible, I can't do that. And any other function that was under testing, that was expecting it to return a string, and all of a sudden it's returning an array, those tests would probably just turn into massive piles of error. But I'd see the same errors. I'd be like, trying to use an array as a string, trying to use an array as a string, trying to use an array as a string. And so this is what I like about testing is like, I think when I started doing development, I would make mistakes and then I'd yell at myself for being, not good enough or whatever. And now I like make more mistakes, but I get to like write other programs to protect me from them. And so it turns, when you have tests, it turns your failure into like, oh, cool, but now I know what I did wrong.
Right.
Right, because it's just like a PHP session. Like, they all die. Who cares? They're all going to die. That's your goal, is to kill it with, like, exit the session and kill it off in a controlled manner. Like, nice. That's your job. So Brian, what questions? What questions from the audience? Where can we go from here?
So I think the next step could be, adding, I guess, firing up a new plugin, and which essentially should just be, WP scaffold plugin, like the WP CLI tool of doing that, and just seeing that happen, which you've already done, but at least it's
let's do it again.
A highbrow plugin, but let's do that just to show that like there is this tool now to kind of set up these assertions, and we could just run that. Assert true, and then I mean we could add functionality, but hard to say exactly what plugin we would be running.
So hold on a second here. Let me just grab this. Gives me my I have to run everything into Docker containers. There we go. There's how to do it.
Actually, if we I can't hear you, but you can hear me while I connect my headphones again. But the actual
he's such a nice guy.
There we go.
He can't hear us, but we.
I heard the nice guy. Yay! Just in time.
Yeah, we were talking about you behind your back, Brian.
Ah, damn it.
Okay.
Mine are running. If we do share my screen, mine are running locally, though. Yeah, with the live stream, a little more CPU.
Sort of switch over, but I wanted to show this off, right? So everything I'm doing here before, that's just to get it to run in the CLI container, my Docker.
Yep.
And like I just never installed MySQL in Windows. Sorry.
Yeah, that's fair.
I'm not even sure I have the WP CLI installed globally. Oh yeah, so WP scaffold. I believe this is a separate package, or is it included in WP CLI core?
I thought it was in core.
Okay.
Is my understanding. I don't remember installing a new one when I last did it. So.
Right. So this is a super useful command set, scaffold. Because it has like create me a new plugin, create a new theme, create a block inside of my plug. These sort of functions, which are neat. So let's scaffold a plugin. And then the first argument is the slugs. This will be webinars. Brian, we should have hired a band for this because there'd be all this load time.
We can have some more banter.
Yeah.
How's your day going?
Pretty good. I'm enjoying. We were talking about this before. Like I have this new job and it's really fun. And I have like a reasonable amount of things to do in the day, not an insanely unreasonable.
Yay.
And I get to write code and write tests and stuff.
That's awesome.
It's neat. Okay, so did some scaffolding here. Right, it added a plugin, it did some tests. So let's go and find my WP content. There we go. That was the plugin I made before. Here it is.
Perfect.
So let's see what that created. It gave us one test here.
That's your bootstrap, yeah.
Yeah. Now, the question is whether or not it's going to run based on the fact that I already installed that in this environment for Caldera forms.
Right.
That's an interesting theory. Let's find out.
Would it need to run PHPunit within the Docker container? Or I guess it's fine.
Who knows? I should really switch to the directory, though.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is the thing I get quite a bit. And this is good that it's not like, rehearsed presentations were like, oh, look, this thing worked perfectly. That we can actually go through some of the things that happen because I've actually had it on another plugin where, you'll run PHPunit. And then even though I've run this like install WP test script, which creates a new database specifically for testing, because these tests are basically, the integration tests, right? That depend on WordPress and depend on the database. But then you run that and either you reboot or something with your local session, whatever is lost, and it just prompts again to like run it again, which is interesting. But
right, yeah. So let's talk about this. Let's talk about why this isn't working.
Yeah.
And what's a little bit weird about WordPress is that the WordPress unit test suite has this install script. And the reason why my Caldera forms tests, which are using that work, is that I had run that beforehand. Like this is a totally unplanned.
Yep.
We had text messages 2 days ago, Brian.
Yes.
But yeah, so what'll happen is that it is using, and this makes sense. I think it's worth going into why this extra complexity, because this is going to sound a little nuts for a second.
Yep.
Is that it's going to install when you run this script, which comes for free with any WordPress. I hit that command, and this is the script he's talking about.
I was showing. Oh yeah, there you go. Install WP test. Yeah.
And there's a file very much like this in Caldera Forms, which I ran to install my test environment.
Yep.
Relative to Caldera Forms in my local environment, right? Because that's like the one WordPress plugin that I ever work on. So once we install this, it creates another WordPress installation in a temp directory. It attempts to add a separate database for that. And the reason why you want to add a separate database, because you're like, wow, that sounds like a lot of extra complexity, is that you want to be able to delete that database after every test run. Sometimes in between, right? You'll just like drop everything out of it because that you want things in isolation. Or for example, if you create a test where, like you have a piece of code that deletes all posts where the author is Brian Hogg, you would probably create 5 posts and you would assign 3 of them to Brian Hogg and 2 of them to somebody else, right? To Luca. That's what you win. You get to be the
the other ones. Or like in the example of like the shortcode, right? Like, oh, okay, one test you want to maybe add like 5 events, right? So which are just posts. And then in another test, you're just adding 1 and you just want to work with that one. So having, if you're just building and, by the end of your test suite, or in another test, you have kind of data lingering around from another one. You kind of want to blow out that database, which can be quicker if the database is running in memory, right? As opposed to, but yeah, that's a configuration thing.
Right. And because in that case, let's say that I had a function that, deleted all posts by Brian Hogg. I create, 5 posts, 3 of them by Brian Hogg, and then I would delete those 3. I would call this, and then I would query, the database for the number of posts. If I was doing a full integration test with the database, obviously we can mock that out.
Yep.
And then I probably do another test to make sure that if there were no posts by Brian, that it didn't throw any errors, right? And then I'd want to make another test if there just weren't posts, right? I can't tell you how many mistakes in terms of bugs that I've shipped because like we didn't test with nothing, right? Like what happens when it's new? There are no settings, right? Like those are weird bugs where you have everything working perfectly and then the new customer installs it and nothing works. You forgot about what happens when there's no settings.
Yeah, when it's brand new because it's been so long.
Right. So that's a thing that you definitely want to destroy the database and start over.
Okay. So how would we actually install? I do have the command here if you don't have it, but yeah, basically installing those WP tests. I'm not sure you've got it on your environment in the Docker.
So for it, I could do it for the Caldera Forms here. I can show you how that works because it's exactly the same script.
Yep.
Right. If you drop in here, if you look here, I have a bin directory. See this installed WP tests?
Is it? I don't know if your screen's updating actually. Maybe it's just me.
Is it not?
I see your video is, but
you don't see me highlighting stuff?
I do not. Maybe other people do, but
does nobody see that? Lucas sees it.
So other people see it. So that's good. Whatever. Oh, now I see it. Okay, so whatever.
So you were back. So anyway, this is the same basic script here, and you can run it with bash. Then install.
There's a /.
Yeah. It's not going to work anyway because I have it automated.
Yeah.
to run inside the container.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
WP test.
Or dash, yeah.
And then you have to give it the database name, the database user, and the database password. And yep. I just have this all scripted in Caldera form, so I can just do, those are WP install, I believe. And it runs through and actually runs all that strings.
Nice.
But I'm not in the right directory and I don't want to rebuild it, because if we go here, I already have the results of that running, right? So if you want to like look at like, hey, how do we write a test for that uses the whole WordPress database, right? We can do that. What would be helpful to folks? Jump into JavaScript stuff. Should we switch over to yours and try and put these
actually add one to a thing? Yeah, no, we could do that. I've got MySQL running on. Actually, I don't know if I can do this. Yeah, I've got MySQL running on my local. But again, for virtue of making this as realistic as possible, whoa, colors are interesting. I've just got it. I haven't tried to install it on this, but I do have the WP CLI command and MySQL running. So let's give that a go. And I guess for installing it on a new one. So do you have to stop sharing your screen, I think, at the top?
Sorry, I still have the polls open. There we go.
Perfect. Yep. So now if I do share screen, and I'll share my other screen. I will rotate this way. You can see the side of my face. Cool. Can you guys see that?
I can see it.
Perfect. So now we're in was it shortcode app public, and for GLS. Yeah, so this is local. So I'm using Valet Plus, which, funnily enough, is primary. Well, Valet is a Laravel thing, but it basically gives you. It's not running in like a Docker container like you've got set up. It's actually running on your machine itself. I think it's Mac only, because it's running MySQL. It's running everything else that your website would need within your own machine. Advantage of that is that it's a lot faster. Disadvantage of that is that if you update your operating system, sometimes it can mess up, stuff like that, right? And it's all running kind of on your machine as opposed to being isolated in a little container. But so that's what I've got running here. So if I do, if I go kind of over to WP content, plugins, the events calendar shortcode, right? So now how would we add, so the question would be, okay, so this is an existing plugin, right? It's got, this is one that I inherited, kind of 3-4 years ago, haven't rewritten, thought, I'm not going to do anything to it until I write tons of tests. That didn't happen just due to time, and a bunch of people were using it, and I was afraid of missing functionality. But if we want to actually add tests to this, I can't remember. I don't know if we can do WP scaffold plugin.
You can do WP scaffold tests, I believe.
No, didn't error out right away. That's exciting.
Look at Luca.
Yeah, right? Hey, plugin tests. There you go. Hey, jeez. Can we just invite Luca on screen?
Yeah, you want to swap out?
Can we just drop off? And no. Thank you very much, Luca. That's perfect. So this command, so you've already got a plugin. I'm in the folder for that plugin, and I'm installing WP scaffold tests. And valid plugin specified. So I guess I have to maybe have to jump up one folder. Let me see if I can grab Chrome window over here. So if I do, let's see here. So this will be WP scaffold plugin tests, just as an example. I'm assuming that we're going to have to specify the plugin right in there. The name of the plugin to generate tests for. Okay, so I'm wondering if we run this potentially from.
Yeah, I think you have to run it from inside of that plugins directory or one above. But the plugin name would be the fully qualified path. Like, not the fully qualified path, but I mean,
Yeah.
Calendar / whatever the directory is.
Perfect. So let's give that a go. So I'm within the plugins folder running that. Heyo, sweet. So we have the tests now added to this. So it's weird with PHP, so we have to like go back and forth. So node module. Hey, tests. So this, it created this folder here. If I go back to that, yeah. So I can see git diff. Oh, weird. I don't know what's up with the colors in the terminal, but if I do maybe K, PHPunit. Yeah, so there you go. So similar to what you had. So it adds the WP install tests. It's got the bootstrap and the test sample. It also added, the Travis config, PHPunit config, and PHP CS config. Nice. So now if I run PHPunit, I assume we'll get the same error that you had. Yep, have you installed? Thank you, functions.php. I have not. So I will do that now. So install WP test.
Sure that says thank you, functions.php.
Yeah. For having all the code.
Somebody make that and send Luca a copy.
Oh my God, yes. All right, so I'm going to call it, what are we going to call it? Let's see, shortcode, test DB, right? So that's the database name, user's root, password's root, because this is my local machine. DB host is not required, so I think it'll default to local. So I think if I do this, it should download and install WordPress. Yep, so you see it downloading WordPress because you need that to run the tests. And then it's also going to, fire up the database. And you can see where it's putting it. It's like these temporary folders and kind of your.
Yeah, I heard you liked WordPress. I put a WordPress in your WordPress. That's what's happening right now. Just Brian's life.
Yo, dog.
When you get graphics for this, like your graphics team, like we just like this on Minaj style.
Oh, that's perfect.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, yo, dog. It's called a meme generator.
Yeah.
So while that installs, let's see. So I mean, you can see it's already done. Nice. So now I wonder if I just do PHPunit, this is actually going to run. So this plugin is a little more complicated, which I mean, a lot of plugins are, right? This is an add-on to it's installing while you run it, or every time you run it. Nice. Yeah, running as a single site. There you go. So very similar output to what you were seeing in your Docker container. Hey. So for some reason, the text is messed in terms of the terminal color, but it ran. No text executed. Okay, that I don't like. So I'm in the folder here for that. No tests executed. So I'm not sure why that is. So we've got the sample tests here, right? Mm-hmm. We've got these are true. So I mean, this isn't doing anything useful, but still, we should get one test that's green on that.
Yep.
I'm trying to see why that is. So we got a PHPunit here. Yep, so that's the tests. So it's looking for tests that have the tests dash. And it's excluding test sample. Thanks.
That's interesting.
That's funny. So it gives you test sample. So when you scaffold it, you've got like a working assertion. But it
check
actually
that was correct, and then go back to that file because that's a worthwhile file to cover. Like get rid of that.
Which one? Sorry. Get rid of this.
Get rid of that line. Just to make sure that you're correct, and then let's go back.
Oh, this one. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. Get rid of that real quick. Now try.
That's really funny.
Why didn't it work? Well, I told it not to.
It told it not to. The computer is doing
basically every bug that you've ever written.
Yeah, right. Like, you told it not to.
Yeah, I know.
You told it to. Or you told it not to. Hey, we're green. That's pretty awesome. So look at that dot there. So that's that the one test ran and the assertion is correct. Nice.
Nice.
So this is adding it to a plugin. It's obviously, again, not doing anything useful, but now we can add another test.
Yep.
So I think the first test would probably just be like, so this is tough because it's an existing plugin. It's not using, like many plugins, the best of structures, right?
Right. Here's a poll. I'm going to stop you, but here's a
go for it.
Yep. Is that Brian's about to fall into a trap?
Oh.
It's a self-defeating trap.
No. Oh no.
Is that Brian is going to say that his code is not testable, thus making it hard to test.
Ooh.
Now, Brian we're friends here, right? But Brian is conflating unit testable, which it might not be, very unit test friendly.
Yep.
With testable. There are many layers of testing. We said this in the beginning. There's acceptance testing. There's integration testing. There's unit testing. There's, static analysis where we can just go through and lint without actually executing and say, like PHPCF can go and look for bad smells in the code. We can lint for like incompatibility with 5.2, right? That's automated testing that you can run, browser testing where you're simulating does the interface work is a great way to get started with testing because this is literally what we did with Calera forms. We fell behind. We did automated browser testing that if those failed, we didn't know what went wrong, but something in one of 12 places went wrong. Then start putting an individual unit test on something we want to switch or an integration test.
Yep.
So if you, Brian, want to start to look at what can we test with this integration test, right?
Yes.
Knowing that's not ideal, and that's kind of why we had agreed to do this part of the thing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Was that we wanted to work in a not so ideal thing. So it's, for example, you can do a really kind of messy integration test where you make sure that the shortcode returns the event title, right? Like this assert string contains.
Yep.
Like capture the output of the shortcode. Like this might be a decent place to start.
Yeah, maybe the output from the shortcode would also depend on an event being created and us, I guess, bootstrapping the other class, right? So if we look at this bootstrap file, and thank you, by the way, for making me feel better about my life.
Talk about a very messy test, and that's fine because it's going to have 6 pieces to it. It's not a unit test. But it's going to give you a little bit of confidence about those 6 pieces. Yeah. And then your next step will be to try and isolate one of those pieces. Right. And if that other that thing with 6 pieces breaks, don't commit it.
Yeah. And we could literally have a test that's, like you said, like testing the output. So the shortcode runs, it runs the query, it fetches events, and it outputs something. Like we don't even have to assert like the whole HTML block, right? That it outputs. We could just literally say like, does it contain? Assert contains is kind of a big one, right? So
like if you have a shortcode argument for like the title of your shortcode, of your your event, for example, you could just make sure that title is in the string. Assert string contains.
Yeah, exactly.
Assert string contains string. Which is definitely not in this version of PHPunit.
I hope. All right. So if we did, so what do we want to call this? So we could say this, what was it? Shortcode init test. So even before that, I can at least test. It's still an integration test because it depends on WordPress and stuff. But this is like just saying that like my shortcode is registered, perhaps, right? So we could say like this is test, object, or was it,
test
global.
Shortcode.
Yeah, class. Yeah, sure.
I do this stuff all the time where it's just like test that something's in the service container.
Yeah.
It doesn't prove that it works. It just proves that I could use it.
Yeah. So we could say
a post type is declared or something like that, Just that a REST API endpoint exists. Those are really simple types of tests that you can get started with, and then like it covers you from big mistakes.
Yeah, exactly. So this is saying
happens. Yeah.
So I can do this, assert. What was that one you did? Assert. Well, no, we don't have to do array key. No.
Assert array key exists.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yep, exactly. So we do this. So when I do the global function, right? Like this class that's where are we here, right? This actually adds it to the globals array, like this class. Yeah, so we can test that that exists as a first test. So let's run that. Just want to see if that works, and then yeah, your idea of just like the shortcode exists, right? Like ECS list events is a thing. You know that shortcode has been registered.
Yeah, like nothing else really matters. Like the point of like if I'm a user of your plugin, I'm expecting to have a shortcode that outputs event details, right? Like that's my base expectation.
Ooh, there we go. So call to undefined function array key exists. All right. So maybe do we do that test wrong?
It's assert array has key. Sorry.
There you go. Okay.
I lied to you, Brian.
How could you?
Are we still friends?
Yep, I think so.
Good.
As key or keys?
Assert array has key. Singular.
Single key. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Perfect. And you can set this up. It's really nice after a while. You can set it up so that you can hit like in editors like this. Control R will like rerun the same test. You can have little arrow here where you can run just this file, and you can run just this file. Yeah, we won't cover that in that one. And it depends on your editor, obviously. VS Code versus PHP Storm or whatever you use. Notepad.
Yeah. One of the things that ends up getting tricky. Oh, did that work?
It worked.
Excellent. You're running unit tests.
Oh my God.
You're running integration tests.
Yeah, right. Because it depends on WordPress and the class is firing up. And doing
but we talk a lot about like a testing pyramid with like acceptance testing and integration testing at the top and unit testing at the bottom.
Yep.
And on a greenfield plugin, like something brand new project, I'm going to start at the bottom with unit tests and assemble from there.
Yep.
On a legacy project, I'm going to start with acceptance and integration tests and move my way down.
That's interesting. I tend to do almost the other way sometimes, like where I'll do like and I'm I guess less afraid to make multiple assertions like in the same thing, but like having it so it's like, okay, this functionality, I want it to do this. Like at the end of the day, I want to run the shortcode and have it output, 3 things or whatever, right? And like none of those things will happen. And as I'm kind of getting the first one to pass, right? As you're doing that, you're maybe creating a new class, right? And then you write a unit test for that class, right? And then as you add functionality to that and write unit tests for that class, the bigger test eventually will pass, right? And it's almost like creating a story in the big test and then splitting it out into unit. I guess for me, it helps keep organized, but it depends, obviously. On the functionality. Yep.
So why don't we try and do the like shortcode has the title test? That's a good one.
We could try, yeah. That would be adding, I guess, somehow bootstrapping in the events calendar by Modern Tribe.
Oh, because you have an add-on here.
Yes.
That's way more complicated.
Yeah, I mean, well, let's do that. The shortcode exists.
Another shortcode real quick. You just add another shortcode that returns a title so we can test it.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, we can try that. I'm trying to think like, well, actually, you know what? If it doesn't exist, I'm trying to think. I think I actually exit out if it doesn't exist. Tribe get events. Yeah, so a function doesn't exist, return nothing. I could change this to be, so this function gets run when, the shortcode executes, right? So we could just make it like no calendar plugin or something, right? So yeah, so then we could make it so that, yeah, when that's run, I will expect, let's see, test with, what was it? Let's say shortcode with no calendar, right? And we should be able to like somehow bootstrap, that with these tests, we run it without the other plugin, the add-on plugin, some don't, but yeah.
If you go into bootstrap.php, actually, you can see where it manually includes
there you go.
your plugin.
Yeah.
So you can actually, I've done this before, right? Because I've written unit tests for Caldera Forms add-ons. That they need to include the Caldera Forms as well, right?
Yep.
Caldera Forms add-ons check for Caldera Forms. So you can do that here. It's going to be slightly different file path.
Yeah, because let's go back one, right? Because this is from within here, but we want this one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Which I think I've actually done. Let me just really quickly pull this up. This is with the other plugin.
Yeah.
Just want to see that quick. So I just pull this over. So we've got bootstrap.php. Yeah, so this is slightly different because this was run a while ago. But yeah, this actually went one step back. Yeah, so it's got the Tesla, it does that, same thing. And then it's adding, the events calendar, and it's adding this. So, and actually these tests, oh no, they're running within that folder. So yeah, okay. So what it's doing is it's grabbing the pro version, and it's also grabbing, which is an add-on, the way I structured it, to the base plugin, and then here is the Modern Tribe calendar. So we should just be able to pop something similar to that in.
Yeah, if we can do that.
Okay, so we want to try just do a quick like running the shortcode one first, just to see. So would it be do shortcode just to see that works, right? Even without that thing.
Yeah, I mean, you could just assert that it's not empty, right? Because if my memory serves me correct, if you do shortcode on a non-existing shortcode, you just get an empty string back.
Well, this should actually return something, because I did add like the shortcode should exist, and it should return this. Okay. Because we haven't bootstrapped it, right?
Yeah. So let's just make sure that it doesn't return empty.
I see. Yeah. So this.
That's what I'm saying. It's this assert. In this version, you're probably going to have to do assert not false.
Or assert.
Assert false empty, right? Assert false.
Yeah.
I hate writing things like this. Okay, and then we're going to assert that empty is false.
Right.
And my mother's going to hate me for using. My mom's going to be mad at me for using a double negative.
I wonder if there's, because empty we'll see how this goes. But yeah, because empty, I think that within empty it needs to be a variable. But yeah,
yeah, you're right. Because in newer versions of PHPunit, you have assert string not empty or assert not empty. I don't think in this version you have those.
Yeah, but we could also do like, because this do shortcode, so we could get the output. Oh no, it ran. Nice.
They work.
Yeah, so assert not empty. Whereas if I do and just have confidence that this actually tested the right thing, let's take out. So again, as Josh, you were saying before, right? You're writing the test, making it false first or fail first, so you know that it failed at some point, right? Because otherwise you might write a test and be like now, right? I'm just like, oh, we're good, we're done. It works, right? But it might not have actually tested the thing that you want to test, which is in this case that we added a shortcode, right?
Yeah.
So if we do like add shortcode.
The one that'll fry your noodle, though, is when you write the test expecting it to fail and then it passes.
Nah, and then you're like, what?
That happens.
Oh yeah.
You're doing bug fixes and adding stuff. That hurts, but it happens.
It's almost like before running, I tend to have this happen. I can't remember who I learned it from, but when you run the test, you want to be like, when I run this, I expect X. So you don't lose track, right? So you go like, when I run this now, right, I expect this to fail. I expect it to say that that false is true, and it doesn't. That's a problem, right? So why is that happening?
If false is true, your computer's kind of reverse its polarity.
Maybe. Yeah, it's just little bits and bytes, right? So if we do,
Lucas suggests assert not empty. Is that in this version of PHPunit?
It may be.
I mean, Luca hasn't been wrong yet.
I trust Luca with my life at this point. So if I do this, assert not empty. Oh, that's funny. All right, let's run this again. So actually, and if you're trying to debug tests too, you can actually do like var dump output, right? Like see what it is. You can go into your code, and I mean, this can get messy. You can have xdebug running, so you can add little breakpoints like in your editor, stuff like that. But There's nothing wrong with some var dumps, especially if you don't have like kind of a fancy editor. You can start to see like what's happening, right? Like this class should be instantiated, so I should be able to do like a die constructing, right, to see that this is running.
Yeah.
Right?
There are a lot of ways, like in PHP Storm, you can set it up to like debug. You did run your code in the debug terminal.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm a huge fan of Xdebug when I'm doing like server-side development. But honestly, when I'm running unit tests, I just var dump and exit.
Yep.
Like
so I expect this to say constructing. Good. So that's good that it's actually saying that. Now I wonder what is the output that I have. So I'm wondering if it's some other output that is empty. So we're var dumping output. We're still going to try doing the assertion that it's not empty. So we'll see how this goes. I know we're pretty much out of time, but this is good. I mean, we added a test. We added the test suite to an existing plugin. We've written a test that, actually, so there you go. Oh, so interesting. Oh, right. Of course. So when the shortcode is not registered, it just doesn't do anything. It outputs the same text. Right?
Oh.
Right? I knew, right? Oh. And that's what happens when you like deactivate a plugin that has a bunch, or a theme that uses a bunch of shortcodes, and then you just see all the shortcodes as they're written, not the actual output replaced, right? So
right. And so what I would actually
so
right, so I would write a test that was like to make sure that your shortcode works. I would like, yeah, it does exactly.
Yeah. Nice.
And so now you're starting to get to these like really top level tests of your system.
Yep.
And then you can just start breaking down into smaller pieces,
Yep. Like I could actually run the shortcode, see what the output is, and start doing things like, is this assert contains, right? So you got a big, say this, right? Outputs HTML. I could do like look for, like maybe create an event up here. I think there's like a, tribe create event. Tribe create event, right? I can like actually create the event with some assertions, or with a title. I think it'd be what post title, something like that, right?
Oh,
there you go. Oh, geez, nice. Right? So I could actually, so this won't work because I don't have the events calendar in there. But yeah, let me just.
Right. So remember that if you added to your Bootstrap to activate, you could. Right. And these are integration tests. They're multiple systems, right?
Yep.
I'm just gonna, before anybody yells at me on Twitter for how much these aren't unit tests.
No.
I do that too. I yell at people too. I'm like, it's unit tests, not integration tests. And but they're neat integration tests. They test the integration of the system. Like, does this part work with this part?
Yeah, exactly.
Because your end user doesn't really care that your like you always have the same properties returned on your object. Your end user cares about the output.
Yeah, exactly. So if I did this, I'd have to do this first. So this will be another test. So I mean, this one would like be like assert not equals this, and then like we could do another. Again, this might be in a separate file depending on how you want to organize your tests. This is test outputs feature event, right? And then that would have, there's the tribe create event. There might be something like this where we have like, so this is the code that Luca did. I don't see anything about Bitcoin in here, so that's good. That it's not going to mine Bitcoin when I run this.
Yeah, that's good.
My event. Oh, so it's static. Oh, so this is actually using. So this isn't using tribe create event. This is actually using factory function within the unit tests themselves to create a post of type tribe events with the title. So this would work to create the post, but we would need more data in it. Like you said, tribe create event will not be there if we haven't loaded thing. But we would need like the date to be in the future, stuff like that. Otherwise, the shortcode by default is not going to return it. It's only returning events in the future.
Yeah. So. And I think that factory is a good thing to mention, that WordPress includes that. Put the back. WordPress includes this factory, and then I end up a lot of time making my own factories, right? A factory is a type of class that's responsible for generating other classes. It's the name of the pattern. And so in my testing, right, I'm doing like an entire test where I test the same class over and over again, right? So I might have in WordPress, if I'm working with, a custom post type, webinars, I might have a method called webinars factory where I can just feed it a title and it just keeps giving me webinar, custom post types back.
Yep.
But WordPress in their test suite has that factory method. So we can use that for creating users and comments and posts, and then we can start to wrap them up in our own factories.
Mm-hmm.
It allows us to avoid doing a lot of like repetitive work in our tests. And if our tests have a lot of repetitive work, then it becomes harder to change them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because these are ones that create sample events. So that's a function that other tests, and this is for the other plugin, call. It was a little more complicated, I think, to set it up, and I don't know if it's strictly necessary, but had to have like active plugins be there, had to Tribe Events main be activated. Maybe this isn't needed in the most recent version. And now my editor is speech balling for some reason. But yeah, we activated the modern tribe calendar, and then we were able to create sample events before this. So this is set up before a class. There's also just set up without before a class, which would run every test. Each and every test that's run, it'll run the setup, so you can do all this stuff that you need to do every test. But then, we can create a venue, we can create an organizer, we can create an event. We could set the date to be in the future. So this is adding 2 days to it, or using kind of time, and it's keeping the same time too, so that we know what time it is, like the current time, whereas otherwise the time would change as the tests run, right? So it just kind of makes this constant. But anyway, that goes. So
question that came in.
Yep.
If you look in, there's like a ask a question feature I just noticed.
Yes.
Jessica Oros asks, do you have any suggestions or recommendations for writing PHPunit integration tests, which depend on external APIs such as mocks or maybe setting expected values and globals? This is a wonderful question. Thank you. Other people have that question. Have questions. That's a cool feature.
So we'll probably wrap up in a couple minutes, but why don't we answer this question? And
so I'm going to give 2 answers. One is I want to try and write my API clients, the thing that's calling the third party for me. I want to be able to write those in a way where the constructor takes an object of whatever I'm using for HTTP. So that could be the WordPress HTTP API. That could be your object of the request class. Request is what the WordPress HTTP API uses to make HTTP requests. Or in a happy world, it would be an instance of Guzzle. And therefore, when I write my tests, I can instantiate that client with a mock object that represents that client, right? Has the same interface. Right, it implements the same interface, PHP interface, but just returns that data. Or if I'm using something that's very easily testable, like Guzzle, you can just pass it an object that will return predictable results. So what I actually do is I go in and just kind of like make the requests against a real, sandbox or whatever. Like actually make the request and like output the results to JSON files. Like I'll make the request and then like write the results to JSON, and then I'll just use those as my mock data. Like I'll have some sort of system, be it Guzzle, you can just give it a set of results, or I'll build a mock of my client and I will just have it always return that data that I know is accurate because I cut and pasted it out of like the response from a real database, right? A real HTTP client. So I'll like call, like I just have a standard set of this where I inline Caldera Forms as MailChimp data, like the account name, like what you get when you call the account, what you get when you call the lists, the merge vars, that kind of stuff.
Nice. So yes, the answer is definitely you can mock stuff, you can set globals. You can do whatever you want in test. What is this? So failed to open stream. That's weird. Oh, of course. Yes. Sorry. Bootstrap. This is the events calendar.
So this is what writing unit tests looks like half the time. Writing WordPress looks half the time is like, hold on, why did that?
Why did that? I don't know.
Right, like honestly, I'm like, oh man, we should have like made this all in advance so it like worked perfectly.
No, but then you don't see the actual flow, right? That's happening. So I really hope this is useful for those who are watching to actually see us go through the steps.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. No, I mean this is good. This is what I expected. So undefined variable output with no calendar. Oh, because so let me see. So that's this test. So I missed
And program.
Okay, so I'm gonna try for time capping this at 5 minutes, and then let's see if we get that running. So I'm gonna run that again while I fix the other test. So this is looking at the self time. So I just need to do was it time, right? I can just do that. This is like now plus 4 days in this case. Yeah. I'm making this an all-day event, whatever. Okay. Good. Hey, whoa, holy crap. Look at that. So this is actually this output meant that it ran the shortcode. It tried to do the query on the events using tribe get events. It didn't find any events because there weren't any because I messed up that self-time thing. Which I'm surprised it didn't. I wonder if I saved it and it ran this version.
But still, you wrote a really useful test.
I know, right? So it actually
your shortcode does the right thing when there are no saved events.
Yeah, but it's actually like it sees. I didn't have to initialize it, but it actually sees that. It actually was able to call, and this didn't fail either. Like the tribe create event, just by adding the other plugin I depend on inside my bootstrap.php. Nice. So I'm not sure why. I'm going to run it again just to see, but I'm not sure why it's not. And it's probably to do with this timestamp. I may just actually just make it a feature because it's whatever. I think I can do, was it S02 time?
Yeah, stir to time, and then you can actually
say do like next week.
I think.
Right?
Like that's the weirdest bit of PHP right there that I actually
I know, right?
Like I'm generally like, why PHP? Like, can we just refactor this? Like I'm on team like deprecate standard library and start over. But this is beautiful stuff. The stir to time with like English words.
It works. Like you can do a lot of stuff with it. Like I guess you could do the plus 1 week. Like you can do a lot of like English words to get it to recognize other dates.
Yeah, I don't know if I like that. I love it. I also don't know. It makes me uncomfortable. Like we just everything. Rars is somewhere on the internet yelling about WordPress state handling and like and thank you. Please fix it.
So this is returning. So it's returning the post ID.
Yeah, I mean, I would assert that's not a WP error, you know.
Yeah. Clifford is like, don't use date because of So there's actually there's a couple of functions like was it current time in WordPress that work on.
And then there's the arguments like MySQL. And then you get it in a MySQL timestamp.
Right. But current time will look at your current time zone, which is sweet.
Yep.
So I might actually do that instead. Or just to cheat, 2019. Let's see, 09, or I'll do 0909. Event end date. Yeah, I just want to see this. I want to see this run.
See,
I wonder if
that you started a test for what to do without when there are no events.
Yeah,
I would have rested on my laurels there.
Yeah, right. I could have just stopped. I should just stop. Yeah, test no events, right? I mean, that's exactly it. Yeah, let's do that. Let's make that green. Let's make it a green test.
I want to end on a happy note, like let's get a test.
Test. No events. Yeah, so I'm not sure why that's happening. Yeah, so this should literally be assert equals. There are no upcoming events at the time. And you can modify the message actually. So I can do this, and I think I can do message equals test or test no events. And so this is not only testing the output and that there are no events, but also testing this message option in the shortcode.
Yeah. I mean, I would test both. Like I would test the default.
You could do both.
The override.
Yeah, exactly. So I can do this.
And that's a mistake that I've made is like not testing the default, not testing. Like one assertion that we didn't get to today is like expect exception.
Yeah.
Like you can run a thing that you know is going to throw an exception and make sure it throws it.
Yeah. And there you can do doc block for that as well, right?
Yeah.
So test no events, message, and actually we can do, so I'm just getting rid of like the temp variables and we're not using it all, just so I can kind of run more assertions without all these test things running around. So this one should be, there are no upcoming events at this time. So that's the default. And then test events. And this actually, I think, runs through the modern tribe. So if you're non-English, this would, or operating system, this would be a different string. But yeah, I think if I do the, there's a function to get the message. Oh yeah, there are no events at this time. There's a filter, and it actually runs through the translate function from the events calendar of that message. And we'll output it in the language, which is nice. Yeah, so one failure. So that other one worked. This is the test outputs feature event. Yeah, so we still can't get the one running in the feature, and I am not sure why.
Yeah, but we just made this test work, so I think that counts as going out on a victory.
I think so. And to show, if you have issues running a test, you want your test suite to be green, but you do not want to forget that you have this test that is not working. You can do mark, was it mark test skipped?
Yes. One of the things I love to do here is just explain why. Like, do
you do the thing here or in a comment?
No, I do it right there.
In a comment or in the string here?
Right there in that string. You have to give it a reason. And so I'll do things like, Kyle's, who I work with at Saturday Drive most now. And so I'll leave a thing like, Kyle, can we discuss why this doesn't work? Because he'll see it and well, remember, this is skipped because it throws this error, which I don't know why, but I have the error message there that we can talk about later.
Yeah. So I think this should not be red. It should be orange.
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go. So it says okay, but you've got skipped a risky test. So to go back, you can see which one's skipped. And you can go back and figure out what's happening. But yay. Yeah. That is way further than I thought we would get on this. And I am super stoked to be able to start writing more tests. Basically like this, doing stuff like this, where we can actually test that the output is there. I could create events like in the future, in the past, test different options, right? Because this one tested that the message option works, which is super cool, right? So
that is super cool.
Nice. Good stuff. Thanks for the help with that.
Yeah, no problem.
All right. So I think this is a good. So how do I get rid of my screen so we can see our faces for a second? Click the close message. I don't know how to unshare my screen, so we will just talk like this. But yeah, thanks for being on the webinar, Josh. I feel like we should do this again sometime. I know we went over time, but hopefully people found this useful, and you can get going and get your tests running on your plugin, whether it be an old or a new one. Yeah,
and where can people bother you if they have questions?
Yeah. BrianHogg.com have all the things. Where can people bother you if they have questions? Where can people bother Luca if they have questions?
Yeah. How can you get, Luca, how can we get in touch with you? I super appreciate everybody showing up. This is legitimately a pigeon. Great.
Pigeon, carrier pigeon. Got it.
All over my neighborhood. Brian and I were talking about this, like it might be fun to do as an experiment, and I think it was fun, and it means a lot to me that like 50 some people showed up.
Nice.
And I'm Josh412 on Twitter. You can find me there or in the WordPress Slack, Shelob9. But yeah, like you can find us there, or like and also we do some stuff like Caldera Forms, Ninja Forms, Ninja Shop, some other WordPress plugins you might want to check out. Brian's got a cool course on the WordPress, on selling WordPress plugins.
Yes, sellingplugins.com plus plugins for beginners as well. So, which does not include unit testing, which feels like a whole other course. But
maybe one day.
I'd love to do more of these and answer more questions. So, thank you so much, everyone, and we'll catch you in the next one.
Cool. Thanks, Brian.
Take care.